Good afternoon and welcome. If I can get all your attention. Welcome, and I want to give a special shout out and a welcome to our legislative delegation who are here. And we have a nice showing. Start off with Senator Olsen. Thank you, Senator. Senator Formica. Senator Needleman. Thank you. Representative Nolan. Representative Kate Rotella. Representative Joe Dela Cruz. Representative Dela Cruz will be doing some karaoke afterwards. Karaoke afterwards. Representative Christine Conley. Thank you. Chris Soto's here from the governor's office. Thank you, our former state rep. Senator Summers, I'm not sure if she's here yet. She's running a little late, and she's on her way. And I think that speaks volumes for how important this forum is and this enterprise is to the region, and not only to the city of New London, and especially for the state. So I'm proud to have New London be the host of this meeting, and I appreciate the time that all of you have sacrificed to be here this evening to share in this presentation. I'm grateful to the Connecticut Port Authority and its partners for providing us with this opportunity. It's great to see so many people, and I recognize that many of you have your particular interest in this project, and that is, of course, the reason for the complexity of this commercial transaction. Okay, what was going on behind me? So there are many separate and equally important interests that need to be considered and accommodated, whether it's the commercial fishing industry, the building trades, competing port interests, and on and on. And of course, the City of New London, as host to the State Pier, has its significant interest in the future of the pier. The State Pier is an amazing asset the city shares with the region and the state, and very shortly, many states on the East Coast, as the hub of the offshore wind industry. I can confidently say that the city welcomes the investment in the pier proposed under the state's and the CPA's partnership with Ørsted and Eversource. However, I am and I have been working to ensure that the city receives an equitable share of the revenue that is generated by this port. Historically, that hasn't been the case. I think the diverse group of partners, all of whom I'm sure are in this room, who have worked with me to understand the needs of the city. I appreciate the time and the resources that the governor and his staff have spent understanding the impact of this project on New London. I recognize that this is a complex project and many other interests also must be understood and accommodated. And I appreciate the leadership team of the CPA, specifically a shout out to Paul Whitescarver, the former commanding officer of the subbase. Thank you for the leadership that you're showing. And finally, I'm honored to introduce to you and to turn this meeting over to David Kooris. David, your confident leadership during these past few months as you work to consummate this deal have been outstanding. I appreciate those efforts, and I welcome you here tonight to explain all this to the community.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You've been a great partner in this initiative thus far, and I'm sure that partnership will only grow stronger in the future. I've had the pleasure, prior to my Port Authority involvement, to work on a lot of projects with the mayor and his administration, and I believe strongly in the direction that they're charting for the future of this city, and have done everything I can from economic development to help them achieve their goals. Tonight, we've got a lot to talk about. The primary objective of tonight, as you're all well aware, is to finally start to share some of the details of what is being contemplated for the State Pier and the State Facility in the City of New London. First and foremost, tonight is about sharing information, being transparent, and providing you all an opportunity to start to give us your feedback on what you're hearing and what you're learning. We're going to talk a lot about the current state of the pier, as well as plans for its potential going back several decades, and the reasons fundamentally why we collectively believe that the offshore wind opportunity presents an unparalleled possibility for maximizing the utilization of this facility and the benefits to the city and the region and the state. We're going to talk in some detail about the proposed infrastructure improvements and the way in which it would be utilized for the offshore wind industry. I'm joined up here by Matt Satnick, who's co-CEO of Infrastructure and Gateway Terminals, who is our port terminal operator, and I'll talk a bit about sort of that process and how we came to that agreement. Mike Osseray from Eversource Energy, and Matthew Morrissey from Ørsted. Eversource and Ørsted are partnered, as folks are hopefully aware, in an agreement that they'll speak more about and answer questions about, called Northeast Offshore, which is the partnership that is delivering offshore wind to Connecticut and other states through various procurement processes that are taking place. Finally, we're going to talk a bit about next steps and how we get from where we are to a future for the port that maximizes its benefits. So the State Pier is a pretty complicated facility with two large piers, State Pier and the CV Pier. As I think everyone is well aware, it is underutilized and requires modernization. This picture is merely representative of the state of disrepair of aspects of that infrastructure. And it is largely because of the quality and the capabilities of that facility that have limited its ability to play the commanding role that we all hope it will play in the city and the region's economy. We average about 23 port calls per year, and just to give a sense of order of magnitude, that's about a tenth of that which occurs at the terminal in New Haven. So clearly underutilized. There is opportunities to increase cargo, which is a large reason why Gateway was selected for their ability, we thought, to maximize cargo potential. But more than anything else, a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is how ports like New London have capitalized on a niche opportunity like offshore wind to go significantly higher in terms of the level and quality of activity taking place there, and the jobs and economic impacts that it creates. So just a little bit of history first, and I won't go too deep into this, but I think it's important to note that going back several decades, there have been multiple studies that have been done concerning the future of State Pier. The most recent of which was done for the Department of Transportation in 2011. The outputs of these studies have been consistent, and they have demonstrated a need to significantly upgrade the facility with additional upland storage, basically more footprint, more acreage, with higher quality kind of wharfage, and importantly, the ability for heavy lift capacity, the ability to withstand the weight of bigger cranes carrying bigger goods. And so I like to think about it sort of the way the piers are today, as they're historic piers, much like the way sort of the west side of Manhattan was, going back into the 19th century. Lots of little piers with smaller boats alongside, and it's basically just not the way cargo works anymore and ports work anymore. If you think about the ports that are around us and most successful, whether it's Quonset in Rhode Island or the Port of New York in New Jersey, much larger land area, much more laydown, much more upland capacity, heavy lift capacity. And so we haven't been maximizing the potential of this facility. But importantly, those studies draw a very significant conclusion. And that conclusion is that the state should not proceed with these improvements until it identifies a partner that will both share the costs of that upgrade and demonstrate a high likelihood of utilization of that facility when complete. And so it's for that reason that for 8 years, this most recent study and decades for the studies earlier have essentially sat on a shelf. We've had the blueprint for what the state should do with this facility, but we didn't yet have the partnership identified to be able to share the costs and increase utilization when the project was complete. And then along comes offshore wind. I won't go into great detail about things that the state has been doing, that our legislature has been doing, that the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has been doing, but the combination of renewable energy targets, low carbon targets, industry-specific or generation technology-specific targets have all begun to lay the foundation for a new industry on the East Coast. And what you see here in the graph, you probably can't read it in any great detail, but what it says is that over the states of the Northeast, based on the commitments that have been made by Connecticut and Massachusetts and New York and down into the mid-Atlantic, there's the potential marketplace for 20 gigawatts of offshore wind generation in the near to midterm. And just to give a sense of scale, I mean, that's basically 40 kind of modern natural gas power plants, right? So it's a significant scale of energy generation and a significant scale of an opportunity. What many folks don't realize is that the location of this offshore wind is actually way offshore. Folks may have seen the Block Island wind farm, which was developed by Deepwater Wind, which is now part of Ørsted, and that is about 3 miles offshore. And it's visible, but it's actually become a huge tourist draw. Every future wind farm will be further offshore than that is, and most of them are way off, 10, 15 miles, all in federal waters. One of the biggest and most attractive lease areas is off the South Fork of Long Island. And so they're way offshore in federal waters, but more proximate perhaps to us in the Northeast, at least this attractive cluster, than many others. So we've been talking, we at the state have been talking with wind developers since last year when the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection initiated a series of RFPs, one that concentrated on wind, anaerobic digestion and fuel cells, and then a subsequent one that concentrated on all zero carbon energy sources. And the result of those RFPs were 2 procurements, 300 megawatts for Deepwater Wind, which is now part of Ørsted, and there were a series of commitments made there. You'll see the number up there, 700 megawatts, because they proposed a joint project which will deliver 300 megawatts to Connecticut, 400 megawatts to Rhode Island. As part of that project, they made certain commitments, as I said, to Deep through the procurement process. 2 of those commitments related directly to State Pier. One was the contribution of $22.5 million for upgrades to the facility, and the second was a commitment of a scope of work to take place at State Pier. And that scope of work, I won't go into great detail. We're all going to be available for Q&A afterwards in more of an open house format after public comment. But essentially, it was working on 2 components of offshore wind, namely the offshore substation and the secondary steel, which is kind of the welding of things like ladders onto things like foundations. And that was one piece that was going to take place here to be added to other pieces at other ports. What we ultimately identified as a bigger opportunity for New London was a broader scope of work that would make New London more central as an assembly and installation hub for offshore wind, which could potentially allow New London, rather than serving as a staging area for one piece, for one project, to serve as the pre-assembly and installation hub for all the pieces of multiple projects. Projects procured by Connecticut and projects procured by other states. To that end, and we'll talk a bit more about this later, but I think it's important to understand the process. The Port Authority underwent a solicitation to identify a new port operator. And in that solicitation, invited proposals from port operators, from wind developers, or from consortiums between the two. We were very happy to receive, amongst the many proposals, a proposal from the consortium between Gateway and the Eversource Ørsted partnership. That allowed us to begin a conversation around a bigger potential scope of work that would really allow the state pier to capitalize on this niche, offshore wind, and to do so in a way that resulted in a bigger scope of work, but importantly, over a longer period of time. So rather than just doing work here for the Connecticut project, as I said, New London could be the hub of operations for projects over the course of a decade or more, meeting the energy procurement objectives of multiple states. There are some very real advantages that have led to this series of conversations, but there are also some constraints. On the advantage side of the column, New London, as I said from that earlier map, is geographically well positioned to the early lease areas that have some of the greatest wind potential. So the fact that New London is proximate to the South Fork of Long Island relative to other ports positions us well. You have to move stuff less distance to get from port out to the farm. It has direct access to open ocean without vertical constraints from bridges or other obstructions or horizontal constraints. The harbor is geographically well protected and has a very high level of certainty of continuous dredge and maintenance due to the presence of the Navy and electric boat and the Coast Guard. And importantly, the supply chain and electric boat and the industry that is involved in this region is very well suited for the types of skills that the offshore industry will be looking to capitalize on. That said, as we learned from our port studies, the state pier is not just plug and play. We cannot show up there tomorrow and take advantage of this opportunity. And relative to many other facilities, it has significant cost investment needed to get it up to the level where it can accommodate this type of activity. It has a relatively small footprint. For a land-constrained city like New London, it is a big facility. But for port facilities throughout the Northeast and along the Eastern Seaboard, it's quite land-constrained. Finally, in terms of constraints, our partners have made very clear and definitive commitments to Connecticut and to other states regarding the timeline for the delivery of that electricity. And there is a lot of risk associated with getting from where we are today to having a completed facility that will allow them to conduct their operations to meet those objectives. As I stated earlier, we went through a solicitation which resulted in the selection of Gateway as our port operator. That allowed the Port Authority to continue with simultaneous parallel negotiations to secure Gateway as a port operator because the contract with our prior operator was ending in April of 2019, and that was effectuated in January, and they did take control and have been operating the pier since May 1st of 2019. That deal, which I won't go into great detail on, but again, folks are here. We can answer questions informally after presentation and comment. That deal will result in $500,000 annual payment and a variable payment based on volume that has a floor of $500,000. So $1 million to cover the Port Authority's operations. That escalates over time and increases with volume. In May, our parallel conversations and negotiations with the wind side of the proposal team from our solicitation, Eversource and Ørsted, in May, you'll all recall, we announced that we had come to terms on a memorandum of understanding that outlined the framework of the public-private partnership whereby we would jointly invest in the terminal and allow for a decade of utilization as an offshore wind hub. We'll talk more about that tonight. Since that time, we have been translating or converting that term sheet or MOU into an actual legal agreement. And folks ask me all the time, why has it taken this long? There must not have been, everything finalized in May. The big terms were finalized. Anyone who has worked with a lawyer can well attest, getting from a term to getting to legal language that can be executed takes time. And we've been embarking on that process for the last now 4 months, which is actually a reasonably short amount of time in as far as these things go. But we're not finalized. And as we committed to you, we're coming to you today, not with a deal ready to sign, but rather with a deal that has been negotiated to a great degree, but is still ready and willing and able for your meaningful feedback. So a little bit about the facility itself, and all the graphics, or these types of graphics that you see here are, actually I don't know if this one is on a board back there. Well, this one may or may not be on a board back there, but if it's not, we can keep it up so folks can come see it on the screen after the fact and look at it more closely, but essentially describes in basic terms what is being proposed to do at the pier. To orient you, north is basically this way. What you see here in yellow is the existing CV pier. What you see there in light gray is the existing state pier. What is being proposed is the filling in of the land between the two piers, as has been advised by decades of studies and analysis, the fortification or strengthening of the southern end of that fill area, as well as the quay side that exists to the northeast to accommodate heavier lift cranes and heavier lift cargo, and an overall leveling, improvement, enhancement, and repair of the entirety of the facility, so that the bulk of the facility will provide additional acreage of laydown potential and storage at weights, in some instances heavier than can be accommodated today, and then the two key areas allowing for much heavier lift. What is important to note, because there's been a lot of discussion about this, the rail access down State Pier will be retained, and that rail link is an important component of our long-term vision for the relationship between the facility and the surrounding region. And this is just to give you a little bit of a graphic demonstration of one of the tower sections of a wind turbine being lifted by a heavy lift crane at a similar facility. In terms of the timeline, we have a commitment to deliver a enhanced and improved facility by April of 2022. That's aggressive for a construction project of this scale and complexity, but we believe achievable. The reason for that timeline is because that is the timeline at which it allows our partners to mobilize to build the offshore farms on the timeline for which they've committed to deliver power to our energy partners in the state of Connecticut and in other states. And you can see here, I won't go into detail, but again, we're available for questions throughout the evening, and we will stay here as long as folks want to talk with us. There are a series of permits and improvements upland, on the piers, the filling in, et cetera. Much of the work is happening simultaneously in different parts of the facility, all resulting in completion by the spring of 22. How will we go about funding this project? As was reported in our announcement in May and since, our private partners, as called for in our past studies, will be funding $57 million of construction cost. Their commitment increases if certain milestones are achieved, including an additional $10 million for timely delivery. The remaining costs are funded by the Port Authority. Our current cost estimate, as has been reported, is $93 million, although there is some additional contingency there that we are still carrying as the design progresses and becomes more complete, which results in an approximately $33.5 million contribution by the public sector. And so in the kind of worst case scenario, the public sector is still paying for less than 50% of this investment. And I'll come back to this, but a crucial point, certainly, is that after the duration of wind activity, be it 10-year or a negotiated extension that results in their jobs occurring here for a longer period of time, after that time, we own the facility in perpetuity. It remains a public asset and one that is better positioned to take advantage of the broad range of cargo options that we hope to maximize throughout the facility over the ensuing years. I want to talk about that kind of maximum utilization concept for a moment. And there's been a lot of conversation about this over the last few weeks. We've gotten a lot of questions about this. The partnership's commitment is to, as I just said, maximize utilization of this facility. That means that at times when a wind campaign is in full force with turbines, which the industry refers to as the nacelle portion, the blades, the towers, when those are being mobilized and enhanced and augmented and assembled in New London for wind farms offshore in the 400, 800 megawatt scale, there will be times when they will be fully utilizing the facility. And there will not be room or capacity for other cargo. There will be other times where they are in between campaigns, where they may have just finished their Connecticut farm, and before they mobilize for the New York farm, there's a gap. And we are all similarly incentivized to ensure that in those times, the facility utilization is maximized by other ships, other vessels, other cargo. And then there's the whole spectrum in between. But we want to make that point clearly. Facility maximum utilization is our top objective because that creates jobs, that creates revenue, that creates activity, and at some times that will be entirely by wind. Given that, I think it's important to remind us all that that is just one parcel, the one parcel that the state controls within a much broader harbor. And we will continue to play the role that we have historically in being the leader of sub-manufacturing. We will continue to host the naval base. We will continue to host fishermen and fishing fleet. We will continue to have dozens of properties on the harbor front that utilize the harbor in other ways. This is just one facility in the overall compendium of activities that comprise what we want to make the most of New London Harbor. A quick note about contributions to the city, and the mayor alluded to this, and he alluded that conversations are still ongoing, but I want to talk a little bit about where we are today. Before this year, With the prior port agreement and port operator, the city had no contributions coming from the port, but for the state pilot, the payment in lieu of taxes, which is approximately currently $125,000. In January, an agreement was announced between the Port Authority and Gateway and the city, which supplemented that payment for the first time with an additional, as of right, $75,000 payment to cover services directly related to the port, and an additional variable fee payment where the city would garner 10% of all revenue coming to the Port Authority with a floor of $50,000, resulting in a total of $250,000. Additionally, with activity coming from offshore wind, we expect vessel volume to go up, we expect activity to go up, we expect revenue to the Port Authority to go up, and with that, this contribution to the city goes up in kind. Further, Ørsted and Eversource, as part of their Connecticut contract, committed to an additional $750,000 to the city during the years in which the Connecticut project is being mobilized out of the state pier. So for those early years, it's a commitment to the city of over $1 million per year. What happens beyond year 2 is still subject to negotiation between Ørsted, Eversource, and the city, but we hope that this early commitment demonstrates the level to which the city will be compensated going forward. A little bit about what will take place at the pier. And my colleagues can chime in or can answer any questions that folks have after the more formal part of this evening. But the typical kind of level of vessel traffic, again, historically over the last few years, we've seen an average of 23 or so vessels. For the wind turbine generator delivery, we're anticipating somewhere between 60 and 80 vessels per year. And for turbine installation, between 20 and 40. So a significant increase in activity, waterborne activity, to this facility in the harbor. You can see the types of jobs that would be directly employed at the pier on the pre-assembly and assembly work, modifying the towers and the nacelles and the blades and getting them ready for installation. Technicians, logistics, terminal workers, crane operators, electricians, welders, with a range of salary between $60,000 and $100,000 per year. What does that work look like? Boats come in, delivering the components. Again, towers, nacelles, blades. There's continuous pre-assembly work at the pier, including electrical and mechanical preparation of the components prior to installation, and then the logistics and maneuvering and crane work to take them off and put them on the installation vessel, and then the outbound installation vessel, having been loaded up at pier, will go out to the wind farm location where the ultimate components are installed. In terms of the magnitude of job creation that we see, during construction, approximately 460 projected jobs, direct jobs, and 395 indirect and induced. This is the construction work to modify the pier, approximately 2 years of activity. And then when the turbines are staged and the pre-assembly work is occurring, we anticipate over 400 jobs to serve the current portfolio of projects, with more contracts possible in the future. We have a lot of steps before us still. In the near term, we're looking to finalize the agreement between the Port Authority, Gateway Terminal, and Ørsted and Eversource. That includes, importantly, an overview and assessment of the components of this deal by additional elements of the governor's administration. As you are all well aware, when I became acting chair of the Port Authority on July 24th, that came along with a commitment from the governor to allocate additional resources from the administration, including notably from the Office of Policy and Management, to take a fresh look at the activities of the Port Authority, including this deal. And I can assure you that that is part of this process. The board will need to approve whatever final agreement is achieved, which will then allow us to execute. Concurrent to this, as we prepare for the potential project, we'll be procuring we will be engaging in a competitive solicitation for construction contractors. Again, members of the team here can talk more about that informally after the comment period at the tables. We have a permitting process involving the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and some aspects of the federal government to enable those activities to take place, including the filling in between the piers. And then we'll be ready to position this facility for the potential that we all believe is possible. On that note, I'm going to close and then kind of open it up and read off the list of those that have volunteered to share their comments with us. But I do just want to close on a couple points. You know, we are incredibly excited about this. As you're all well aware, State Pier has not fulfilled its promise to the city, the region, or the state over these last several decades. What we have consistently heard from our partners in the industry, from our consultants that the Port Authority has engaged, from all of our various partners and stakeholders, is that the greatest opportunity to maximize its potential and utilization is to identify a niche that we're well positioned to capitalize on and to enable that niche to maximally utilize this facility. We think that offshore wind presents that opportunity. We think the combination of New London's facility characteristics, geographic location, regional workforce, political commitment at the municipal and state level positions us better than most places in the country and positions us better for this than for any other opportunity that has crossed by us, crossed over our desks. We see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and we hope that we can all work together to hear your concerns, hear your hopes, incorporate them into our concepts, and seize this opportunity, which will not be here forever, to enable New London and State Pier in particular to realize the potential that we've all held out for it for so long. With that, I'm going to ask for the list. Thank you, Andrew. And absolutely, thank you. I will read off, I'll step back so I'm not kind of hounding you here, but I'll read the names of those that have signed up in order. There is a lot of interest, as you can imagine, so I do ask that folks keep their comments to 3 minutes. I will time. If there is opportunity after the fact, you can come up and speak again, though, be rest assured, all of the comments are being recorded word for word. That information will be conveyed to the project team, so we will have that record. After the comment period, we will break back to the informal open house, and there'll be a table focused on the project where you can ask the Port Authority or Eversource and Ørsted aspects about what we are proposing for State Pier. There will be a table around offshore wind where you can ask Ørsted and Eversource questions about the industry, the potential, the demand, et cetera. And then there will be a table about port operations where you can ask representatives from the Port Authority or Gateway around the way in which State Pier will be managed. Hopefully, you'll have an opportunity to directly interact with whatever members of our team. But we have collected everyone's email address if you signed up. We will get into the habit of regularly disseminating updates, and we are always open to hearing back from you. So please don't think of this as your sole opportunity to provide us with your comment. With that, I would like to begin by inviting the state senators, Senators Austin, Formica, Needleman, up, and I think they're going to share their thoughts.
Thank you, David. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts. This project has taken a couple of different tracks. There are the issues in and surrounding the mechanics of the Port Authority, and we believe, I think the three of us are united in believing that those issues need to be resolved quickly and moved forward. The second track is what you just heard David talk about, the opportunity that lays before the state and the city of New London and Southeastern Connecticut. In a deal like this, when you have emerging industries moving forward, there are opportunities for everybody. And there are solutions that come out of this type of collaboration and some of the collaboration that's been going on to achieve mutual benefits. With regard to the wind deal, the developer needs a port where they could anchor their business, access to the turbine fields, and access to the strong and wonderful workforce that we have here in Southeastern Connecticut. Those are part of the reasons they're here. Our commitment as senators, mine here for the 20th district, to make sure that the business and people, the ratepayers, get the benefit that they deserve. And that's all a win-win situation. The maritime industry. The interests need to be protected. The fishing, we've talked about that. The docks, the ports, the sea life, the transmission line impacts on some of those fishing areas and some of the fish and aquatic life. Access to the river. We're at the mouth of the river here. We need to make sure that we maximize the river moving up toward from New London toward Norwich, and the close proximity of those businesses to the pier, specifically the ferry, to make sure that their operation doesn't get impacted and can move forward and grow as the region grows. There's opportunity up that river, we all know that. A couple of large closed facilities that could be repurposed over time. The city. We need to reflect the impact on the services of the city. We need a host agreement that recognizes shared value to the city and to the business and to the pier. We need an opportunity for long-term benefits, for jobs. Jobs are an important part of this, both direct or indirect. And as the economy builds, I think those numbers are going to be small as we move forward, increasing the economic opportunities here in Southeastern Connecticut as a result of that. Associated business developments that are going to support this industry. We talked about access to rail. I was on COG as a first selectman way back when Congressman Courtney first tried to get the Tiger Grant. He was unsuccessful. We mobilized a rail committee of 60 people through the COG, and through the great work of the congressman, we were able to get that Tiger Grant so that we can upgrade that freight line. And so we have to make sure that we use that. That rail access is going to be important to move opportunities for industry up into Columbia, Willimantic, Norwich, so that we can take advantage of this. You heard about the upgrade to the pier, but the state needs jobs. The state needs revenue. and we need to grow new industries here in the state of Connecticut. Southeastern Connecticut is a hub for energy. We have the largest generator in New England here on our doorstep, and we need to make sure that we move to the next generation of energy because there are shelf lives on that. Tourism. We need to develop tourism. The Coast Guard Academy is coming, and Southeastern Connecticut is strong for tourist activity. And the more awareness that we bring to this area, the more tourism we get and the more business opportunities will come to our region. We need to reduce dependence on other opportunities for fuels because we tried to increase the opportunity for natural gas to come here by expanding the transmission line. We were shut out by neighboring states. We tried to bring transmission lines from Hydro-Quebec to bring transmission from that clean energy down here. We were shut out by neighboring states. So we're limited in the energy sources that we have. And if Millstone has a shelf life, we need to be developing the infrastructure to create energy efficiency, not now and not today, but 10 years from today. And energy demand will be growing. So we need to work on the next generation of energy generation. And as Energy Committee, I'm proud to serve with Senator Needleman, who is the chair. I am the ranking member on that. And we need to continue to move forward the opportunity for affordable energy generation. And renewable costs, while not as stable as baseload, as such as nuclear and gas, they are reducing in price, and we are going to need to take advantage of that opportunity that presents. We need to look at storage and how we balance all of that. And we need to get energy efficient homes, both with rooftop opportunities and smart devices. So moving forward, we need to embrace what we have. We have to make sure that these opportunities are provided for everyone. That's part and parcel of it. And I think there's a long way to go, but it's about time we have the opportunity to have these discussions. Let's move forward and move Southeastern Connecticut forward and Connecticut. So with that, Senator Austin is on the Transportation Committee and Chairman of the Appropriations Committee.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming today. I think it's vitally important that we all get together to talk about this issue. And I look forward to each and every one of your points of interest because I think with you, we will be able to get a successful deal that brings everybody forward. We need to be more inclusive on the use of the state pier and more inclusive on us on what we're trying to do here. Paul addressed a lot of the individual issues. We do have problems with this particular deal that I think we need to recognize, work on, and fix, and move forward. And on the Transportation Committee, the Port Authority is one of those issues that we need to address. We need to make sure that we have a transparent system so that each and every one of you feel comfortable with the deal. That's vitally important that we have that. We need to make sure that all stakeholders are involved in this discussion. And I am still concerned on the value that the city gets on its use of the state pier. So I just want people to understand that that is still a concern that we need to make sure that that happens. Very often, the state takes the lion's share of the revenue, and the city has the services that they need to put out there. So I think we still need to look at that issue. I think that that's important. I also think it's important for us to remember that we have current workers that are down on the state pier. We need to make sure that they have a landing that keeps them both here in Southeastern Connecticut and profitable in Southeastern Connecticut. I think that we have a great opportunity here today. I really do. But I think it's important that each and every one of us, each and every one of you tells us what those concerns are. I think it's important because then we can finally address the issues that have to be addressed. And thank you very much. And I'm on transportation and Senator Needleman is on energy.
So I don't have a lot to say here, but I am the chairman of the Energy Committee, and we have a major investment in renewable energy in the state. The governor, as you all know, put out very aggressive goals to get to 100% renewable energy by 2040 and significant carbon reduction. And right now, the best opportunity for that is the wind energy that we can develop off of through the New London Pier. I've gotten involved late in the game because I saw there were problems, and I've been trying to work quietly to try to resolve them. And I am excited that David is now chairing the Port Authority and that we're bringing some openness and clarity to the process. I also agree that this is a great opportunity for Southeastern Connecticut, Connecticut in general, but it has to work for New London. And I think that that may have been left out. Ferry is an important part of New London. It has to work for the ferry. It has to work for the fishermen. It has to work for all the people in the back who are looking at the opportunity for jobs here. So a more inclusive process, this conversation that's going on, I think will end in a great result for the city of New London and for the state of Connecticut. So I want to thank everybody involved here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'd now like to call up the state representatives, and I know that Representative Conley, Representative Rotella, Representative Nolan, and Representative De La Cruz are here, and I apologize if I didn't see any other state reps who came, but you are welcome to come up as well. Rep. Ryan. Not everyone should feel pressured to shake hands with the receiving side to make your comment.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for coming out today or tonight. State Representative Anthony Nolan, the 39th. Once again, thanks for coming out this evening. And a lot of us are going to run into things that probably the other person has said, but I want to go straight to the point of, for too long, New London has gone without. For too long, New London has been the underdog and has not gotten their fair share in things. And I can tell you this, that this team here, along with the senators, have been talking, I know since before I came in February. And then I know when I came in February, I know I doubled the talk because I started talking a lot about it. We don't feel the need to go out and put people down or tell people how bad they are or for what they've done wrong. We discuss it and we let them know. So things are not going untalked about like some people think. We are out there talking and we are making sure that the discussion is continuing. The first and the most important thing for us is transparency. We were disappointed how long it took to be transparent. So we will say that right away. Now that there is a new team at Port Authority, which we are glad there is, the things that we're trying to make sure happens is that one, jobs stay here in New London, that they're not jobs that come in. We want to be able to hire people from the area. So we're hoping that in the discussions, the further discussions, that we can come up with some agreement that can make sure that those people that are working here will get a great percentage of the jobs that come in, whether indirect or direct. The other things that we discussed was commitments. Commitments to making sure that New London comes out a little better than proposed that you saw up there. For too long, we've been getting less than our neighbors or less than what we deserve. So I'm hoping that, and I see you, Peg Curtin, telling me to wrap it up. I'm not wrapping it up yet. There's just so much that we went without for so long. We just really want to make sure that we're getting our due because we've gone without so long. Tax relief is one thing I'm glad to see the numbers that were up there, but I would be glad to see higher numbers than that. And I hope that we can work on that. You know, we understand that we are actually the best place for you to do that. We realize this is the place that you are going to do that. I know. So we're glad that that's happening. As far as cargo and the rail system, we're hoping that that continues to be utilized, and that also, along with the more than single use, that we get a piece of the single use too. It's all about the big monies that you're going to be bringing in. We just hope to pick up some of those big monies to make it better for New London. And now, Peg, I'll stop talking and I'll let someone else go.
All right, Representative Joe Dela Cruz from the 41st District. 32 years ago, before this meeting, if this meeting was taking place that long ago, you'd be sitting in chairs that I set up. I worked for the Radisson Hotel. I grew up in the projects right at the top of this hill. And for my entire life, I have seen London get the short side of the stick. For my entire life, I've seen workers not advance the way they should have. And I think this is one of those opportunities where we can change New London. When New London, we had a couple opportunities, and one was started with a W that we took huge advantage of, and we were considered the New York of the East Coast back then, but that was whaling. And whaling can't happen anymore, but wind is coming, and we have to embrace it. We have to be part of this process, because I've been in government for a long time. I did 6 years on an RTM, 3 years on a town council. I know how hard it is to put even little deals together. A deal like selling a school in my town of Groton now that I live in is very hard to do. So to bring a deal together as massive as this, with the amount of talent that we have ahead with us, makes me feel good about it. Do I have butterflies in my stomach when people ask me if I guarantee that it's the right thing to do and all this is gonna work out? I would lie if I said no, because nobody loves New London like I love New London. This is a sad fact, but I've never left New London to Groton for more than 11 days in my entire life. I didn't go to college, and I didn't tour the world or join the Navy. I've always been here. I've done construction my whole life. I know what it means to have a good job living in this area. The workers that work at the Pier aren't just people we talk about. It's not a person that I say, we need to think of the workers. They're my friends. They're people that I believe need the checks that they get, and the uncertainty that they face because of this new opportunity gives me pits in my stomach. I'm a politician that hangs out and drinks beer with all the guys, that bowls on Monday night, that hears people say, do you think I'm gonna be able to unload salt next year? Do you think I'm gonna have a job as a second job? I talk to people each and every day about stuff that really, truly matters. And if I didn't believe in this project, if I did, again, my whole life being in New London, we've had a bunch of people show up and say they were gonna do X, Y, and Z. But I can tell you for certain, they weren't as impressive as the group that we have here today. I've been to enough meetings over the last 3 years to realize that these aren't folks that are just coming into town saying that they're gonna do something that they never did before. They've been there, they've done that, and they wanna do it here. And although it's hard for us to grasp that sometimes, because we're always, I feel like the person that was always told no, that I never got the prom date, we're here. This is our prom date, and I think we need to make the best of it. And with all the work that can be done down at that pier, the massive amount of improvement, and I won't talk about the stuff that we know potentially can happen. I'm just talking about the history of New London and how I know deep down inside, we have a history of not getting the best deal all the time. And I feel that in my gut too, and I know you do too. And I expect to see, pitchforks and torches on the outside of this building today, because people just want to make sure we get the good deal, the right deal. And I'm here to tell you that I believe that we are here today getting the right deal. As a member of the Energy Committee, as someone who's done 3 or 4 shutdowns at Millstone, done construction my whole life, I can tell you there is an end to that energy. And as Senator Formica referred to, there's a sunset. In 15 years, we'll be looking for new energy. This is the start of what we do next. And together we can do that, and it can happen here. Yes, in New London. Thank you. This is my good friend, State Rep. Conley, and she's on the Transportation Committee.
Thank you. Representative
I'm Christine Conley of the 40th District, and a little more petite than the prior speakers, apparently. But I would like to speak about the opportunity, and as my profession as an attorney, I appreciate the chairman talking about the months of time it's taken for the attorneys to work on the details, because I think that's the most important reason we're here today, is to make sure that we get the details from all of our partners. On the Transportation Committee, we have asked for the details on the Port Authority, both documents and people to come testify before us again. But we also need the details here tonight from members of the business community, members from the public, members from the city, so that the state can move forward correctly, swiftly, and do not take advantage of this great opportunity, because this is an opportunity to grow our entire state economy through the hundreds of jobs, hundreds of really good paying jobs that I would like to see Connecticut residents getting at this pier, living in this city, and prospering, enjoying the businesses in this city. To do that, we need to hear from each and every one of you, and we also need the folks at the table who are writing these documents to be mindful, to make sure that they do get the details right, so that our ferries are protected, our other businesses are protected, our rails and our federal dollars are protected, so that all of the users can be using the state pier, and we do not only take extreme advantage of the opportunity for wind and more development and more jobs, but at the same time make sure we are fully supporting our partners that we currently have in the state. So I look forward to hearing from folks, to make sure that we have all the players at the table, that we get all the details done, do them again swiftly, but again, make sure that this is an opportunity and a decade that we get it right the first time. And I'd like to introduce my friend, Kate Rotella from Stonington.
Thank you, State Rep Kate Rotella from the 43rd District. So thanks for being here tonight, and I want to let you know I was born in New London and grew up here, and then moved later on to my district now. So I have two homes, New London and Stonington. But I think, you know, for me, it's really important for us to work together in an open process, to be transparent. This development brings phenomenal opportunities, exciting for us, before our region, for jobs, for energy. Keeping everyone informed and having the transparent process is important. As a director of procurement, I can tell you how hard these big RFPs are and how much time they take. And I can appreciate between the negotiations after the RFP goes out and then the negotiations with the attorneys, it does take time. But it is important that we now try to move swiftly through the process. Also, I want to be brief. So all the representatives here, look forward to talking with any of you. We're available to you. Please reach out to us. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathleen McCarty. I'm the state representative just next door in the 38th District, representing Waterford and a piece of Montville. And I'm kind of familiar with the process, having worked the last couple of sessions on maintaining millstone here in the region. But as we said all along, we are looking for new opportunities to move forward with our renewable energy. So I'm very excited to be here tonight and to listen. I'm here actually to learn from all of you. You heard from my colleagues all about the different various issues that we'll be facing, but this is a tremendous opportunity. I work on the Education Committee, so I'm particularly interested in the brand new jobs that are going to come to the region, and we're going to be preparing our students, and we want to look at wind energy as one of those areas. But I do want to just say, I don't want to see millstone going anywhere for a long time. They should be around for another couple of decades, but there's plenty of room for energy in many forms with the solar, the wind, and the different areas. So I'm excited to be here. I'm really here to listen to all of you and to learn. So thank you.
Great, thank you all. So now we're going to continue on with the list. I'm going to try and move this out of the way a little bit. Okay, I'm going to read off the list, and as I said, I will have a timer and ask that in respect to everyone's time, folks do keep to the 3-minute limit. I'm going to go in order here, and the first person on the list, and please invite you to come up to that microphone, is Edward Johnson.
Edward Johnson, 87 Main Street, Groton, Connecticut. I've submitted material to you folks, all of you, courtesy of the desk outside, so I'm just going to read portions of this letter. The Connecticut Port Authority website still shows the following information. Since 2014, the Connecticut Port Authority has established itself as one of the premier shipping harbors in New England, consisting of 3 deepwater ports in Bridgeport, New Haven, and New London. The Connecticut Port Authority strives to deliver the best possible shipping experience for any organizational needs. Number 2, the agreement with Gateway includes the following statements made as noted in the January 7, 2019 issue of Professional Mariner. This agreement presents an opportunity to expand the port's role, New London, as an economic driver by increasing the overall traffic flowing through this key New London point of entry. Our partnership not only positions New London as a potential offshore wind hub for the Northeastern United States, but also supports the local harbor community and existing uses, which we believe will expand when we begin our operations. And lastly, on May 2nd, 2019, Channel 3 Eyewitness News has the following quotes, primarily by Scott Bates, who's formerly of the Port Authority. Our local workforce will upgrade State Pier into a world-class port facility, and the increased capacity of State Pier will continue to expand the existing flow of cargo into New London. And that does not appear to be what's going on at this point. This new proposed restriction on who's going to be using the port facility, allowing only an exclusive use of the State Pier area by the wind power, would have a disastrous effect on other businesses and is viewed by some as an inappropriate use of Connecticut state property to benefit a utility industry. And I'm a Connecticut taxpayer. And it looks like there's $35 million worth of my tax money being used for this. Let's allow the port to remain open in some fashion for the other remaining industries. You've got what amounts to about 7 to 8 usable acres of land that's coming available with the Crystal Avenue apartments coming down. It was in today's paper. Use that for part of the wind farm and leave some of the pier space open. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Richard Hein from Thermahan. Sorry to butcher your last name.
Hi, my name is Richard Hein. I'm the COO of Thermahan. We are a local business located in Groton. We provide marine services and autonomous systems and sensors. Our basic mission is ocean transparency. My life kind of, started my working life in New London as my first job was at supervisor shipbuilding, then plank owner on a submarine, served on a couple submarines at subbase, went off into the development world for 25 years after my naval service, came back, formed a company in Groton. And I can tell you that it was against all advice of lawyers, accountants, business advisors that we came to Connecticut. And the reason we ignored them. We didn't go to Mississippi, we didn't go to Virginia. We came to Connecticut for a couple reasons. One, this maritime infrastructure. We wanted to be part of this blue tech hub that we envision for this area. But really for the people, there's a unique labor force here that's got a maritime heritage, shipbuilding, as economic or educational resources. And we've had cooperative local government. So we're the company that Representative De La Cruz refers to that is redeveloping the Groton Heights School. And that's an example of small businesses that, our customers are NOAA, the Navy, the Coast Guard, and hopefully Orsted and some participation in this opportunity. And I will tell you, in my 17 years as a development partner for Lehman Brothers, I've sat in that seat, I've sat in these seats, and I've never met a corporate customer, potential customer like Orsted. And what I mean by that is a company that has this credo of sustainable energy, clean jobs, and they live it. This is a company that divested its oil and gas infrastructure. They got oil and natural gas out of their name. And we've met with subject matter experts, we've met with technical experts, we've met with Orsted senior staff, and all of them care about local content of jobs. They care about protecting the oceans, looking out for the fishermen, watching out for the whales. I can tell you, I've never been so impressed, and I'm not paid to be up here to blow Orsted's horn, but I can tell you I'm confident that they're the kind of partner that this city needs. So my basic comment is 2 points. One, we have a unique workforce here in Connecticut that we're currently tapping into, that Orsted and Eversource can continue to tap into, so let it happen. Second is, in all my development experience, I've never seen an opportunity where a transformational industry like wind energy meets a locale or town with the infrastructure and the people to support it like this. And I would encourage the politicians, the bureaucrats, the local residents, listen, learn, don't blow this opportunity over, administrative and bureaucratic, issues and problems. Embrace it, and I can tell you it's going to be what I think will be a special project that could transform New London. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Blacker.
Before you start that clock, can I either turn this microphone around or speak from the podium like the first 7 or 8 or 10 public speakers and public comment that you let cut us in line?
They were actually signed up first, but I can do that so that you're pointed at both the crowd and us.
Like to turn and face the real authority in this room, which is the only authority, I believe, the public. I think that there are an awful lot of questions that need to be answered, that we need to get answers for before this deal is approved. I'll give examples of a few questions. What is the proposed source of the dredge material that would be used to fill between the state piers? State Pier is a foreign trade zone. Will Orsted pay customs on windmill components that they bring into State Pier? State Pier falls within a qualified opportunity zone created by the 2017 federal tax bill. What role will that zone play in the State Pier deal? And also, given the length of time that we're going to commit a state-owned facility to, what do we know about the leadership of End Structure, the financial backer of Gateway? Not just Matt Statnick, who's sitting over to my right, but also Felipe de Montejagne, Brian Frank, Janet Arsenal, Ken Boudreau, other leadership. What do we know about their past? What do we know about other deals that they've been involved in? We need to vet them thoroughly if we're going to commit, put our trust in them. I also want to say, and an awful lot of what David Kooris said tonight is at direct odds with the 2017 statewide freight plan put out by the Connecticut Department of Transportation, specifically the 7 port investment strategies. I recommend any legislator, any member of the public to look that document over and note that there is nothing about offshore wind in that document. Last thing I want to ask is, what is the cost? What impact will offshore wind have on the cost of electricity? How are those costs being calculated? And we need those answers and answers to all of our questions before we allow this deal to be completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney Van Zandt.
Good evening. I would like to start this by saying this is a room full of people I have seen not one name tag. How are we going to have a conversation with you after this is over if we don't know who we're talking about or to? So in the various things that I work with, people say, oh gosh, here comes Sydney, she's gonna want the name tag, so.
Noted for future.
My name is Sydney Van Zandt. I live at 3 Front Street in Noank, which is in the town of Groton, which is bordered by the Mystic and the Thames River. This development proposed by a foreign company needs to purchase 7 acres of land, not fill in 7 acres of the Thames River that will remove New London's harbor as a working entity. In the not too distant future, the pressures of congested traffic along our coastal highways, the 95 parking lot, will need a change to more shipping by water. The proposed funding for upgrading the railroad connection now at the port facilities will allow for movement up to the Canadian border and return to additional shipping. Hundreds of jobs should be anticipated. It would seem to me that the Economic Development Committee and the Chamber of Commerce should be able to come up with a 7-acre parcel that would meet those needs, even if they move into the new space to be opened by the removal of empty buildings reported in the September 17 issue of the Day. Where is New London going to come up with the millions of dollars to replace the ruined docks? And where are the supplies presently unloaded there going to be transferred? As a former member of the Council of Environmental Quality, CEQ, and the Connecticut Coastal Area Management Advisory Board, I am appalled that this company, not to mention the Connecticut Port Authority, is proposing the filling in 7 acres of the Thames River and eliminating this valuable marine resource. Clean energy is vital, but this location of this manufacturing project needs to find 7 acres of land. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Basham.
He's coming.
Okay, Chris not here yet. Keith Brothers.
Good evening, everyone. Keith Brothers, 268 Thomas Road, Groton, Connecticut. I'm the president of the New London Norwich Building and Construction Trades Council. I represent 10,000 construction workers in Southeast and Eastern Connecticut. Just a couple quick thank yous. The building trades has been fortunate to be part of this process for the last 3 years. So a thank you to the governor's office, his staff. Chris Soto's here tonight representing the governor's office. The New London mayor, Mike Passero, thanks to you being the host community. The information is always there when we need it, and we thank you for that. Great job on your behalf for your residents and the people of New London. The local delegation who spoke earlier, they represent us very well in this area, and we appreciate that. And last but not least, the Orsted and Eversource team that is now the Revolution Wind team. The building trades is proud to announce in April of 2019, we signed a memorandum of understanding to do all the construction work with Revolution Wind under a project labor agreement. So the project labor agreement will ensure that all the work at the pier done by Revolution Wind will be done with union labor, local skilled apprenticeship, tradespeople, and we're very proud of that. Ever since reaching the MOU, the building trades and Eversource, we have watched as the region prepares and weighs in on the merits and challenges that come with this new industry. As we discuss the redevelopment of the State Pier, it is important to note the real-world impacts that offshore wind can bring to our region in the near future. Construction is set to begin on the State Pier in 2020, and New London needs to seize the opportunity and the benefits of the hardworking people who live and work here. We are talking about transforming New London into ground zero in the renewable energy market for the next 10 plus years. During periods of heavy utilization, the port will be a brand new center of a high-tech market that will provide good paying jobs for local New London residents in the surrounding counties and communities. Ørsted Eversource's joint venture investment in New London has the potential to revitalize an underutilized State Pier. We are talking about real jobs with pensions, retirements, opportunities for training. Our tradespeople have been able to redesign certain projects across this region, along with this State Pier project moving forward. We will still have a world-class facility that can compete on a level that has never been able to be seconded. The London building trades stand ready to help ensure that New London can reap all the benefits that this new industry can bring to the region. New London is ready to take advantage of the immense potential and help Ørsted Eversource in this joint venture. Let's get to work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Adam Ranowski.
No worries. Good evening. I'm not Adam Ranowski. I'm Stan Mickus, and I'm with Crosstown Ferry Services here in New London. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Crosstown Ferry is a fourth-generation family business here in New London. Crosstown and its affiliates are one of the largest taxpayers in the city of New London. Our service transports over 1.3 million passengers and 500,000 vehicles annually. We employ almost 400 people and are active and participating member of the Southeastern and New London communities. Our business is in a continual mode of growth, and in 2019, we are experiencing one of our busiest years to date. Between the ferry services to Long Island, Block Island, and our excursion cruises, our terminal has as many as 72 arrivals and departures each day during the peak times and during the summer season. Crosstown's New London terminal is recognized as one of the largest ferry terminals in the U.S., and our route between New London, Connecticut, and Orient Point, Long Island is recognized by the U.S. Maritime Administration as part of the America's Marine Highway. We support alternative energy, and we also support the proposal by Ørsted and Eversource to bring wind power to Connecticut. Our efforts in green energy have resulted in an entire fleet repowering to install and upgrade our vessels with cleaner burning and more efficient engines, a project supported and lauded by the EPA and DEEP. We support the economic benefits being proposed by the project at State Pier. That being said, there are issues we have with the current plans for State Pier infrastructure improvements being proposed by the Connecticut Port Authority. We appreciate the time and support of Congressman Joe Courtney and his staff, as well as our local legislative delegation in hearing our concerns. We are confident, though, that these ongoing discussions with the Port Authority, with Ørsted and Eversource, will result in a resolution to these issues, ensuring the long-term vitality of Crosstown Ferry and its affiliates in a successful offshore wind project development here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony Sheridan.
I am Tony Sheridan. First of all, thank you for being here, providing a forum for public input. It's overdue, as you know, but this is an enormously complicated project, and I think most people understand the complexity and why it took so long to get here. I also want to thank Eversource and Ørsted for bringing this incredible industry to New London and the surrounding region. This is a new page, a new venture for the entire state of Connecticut, especially New London. Anywhere you go in the country, and I hope I'm not embarrassing somebody by saying this, you still hear, oh, New London, the eminent domain city? This turns a new leaf for the city and the region, and we cannot let it slip through our fingers. I know it's complicated. David, thank you for taking on the issues at the Port Authority and the Governor's office. I know you're going to get through this, and tonight was a terrific start. So thank you folks for being here and for providing the opportunity to say a few words. I represent 1,600 companies that belong to the Chamber, and I can almost guarantee you every single one of them want this operation here in New London. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Tucker Braddock.
Good evening. My name is Tucker Braddock. I'm from the city of Norwich. I'm currently serving on the Port Authority, the Harbor Commission as the chair. I'm very excited that the Port Authority is finally bringing the Deepwater ports together, that we can enjoy and enhance the commerce in our state of Connecticut. I'm very thankful for Ørsted and Eversource to be coming together as partners and helping create for a low carbon energy. I hope that the cost of this power that we're producing is within the means of the citizens in this community, of our community at large. It's a very positive thing happening in Eastern Connecticut. I think we're right at the end of the Thames River. We have a federally regulated turning basin. And we hope and we're quite sure that if New London seizes this moment and grows this pier, that we will all, as a region, appreciate the growth. And it's very important to the citizens of this community. We have good companies here now, but we need a new idea. And I think the wind power offshore is a new idea for Southeastern Connecticut and our commerce at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Yerman.
Good evening. My name is Gary Yerman. My son Scott and I own New London Seafood Distributors here in New London. Some of you may not be familiar with New London Seafood, but we have been operating near Fort Trumbull for 30 years, are routinely responsible for 6 to 8 million pounds of seafood a year, which makes us the largest unloading facility in Connecticut. I give this brief background so you understand how important these waters are to me, my family, and everyone connected to New London Seafood. The wind farm concept was introduced. When the wind farm concept was introduced, I was as skeptical as anyone. We went to every meeting possible and was approached by every group jockeying for position and trying to convince us whatever position they were paid to sell. We couldn't get enough information for our unanswered questions. After we met Matthew Morrissey, we started to get answers to a lot of those questions. Matthew provided information and experts to address our concerns. When I first met Matt, it was at Muddy Waters, and I was talking to him about where he came from, got a little background on him. He comes from New Bedford, and then he told me that going to work at Deepwater Wind, they had hired Rodney Avila, who's a 50-year fisherman in New Bedford. I'd known Rodney for probably 40 years myself. Having talked to him and talking to Matthew about what Deepwater's, their mission and how they were interested in getting concerns from the fishermen, wanted to work with the fishermen. I was very happy to understand when Orsted and Deepwater merged. I felt very comfortable with that. After we met Matthew Morrissey, we started to get answers to a lot of those questions. Matthew provided information. Oops, I already said that, sorry. When we had more questions about the impact of the wind farms on European fishing industry, a group of us flew to Kilkeel, Northern Ireland, to meet with fishermen who have been through what is proposed for the areas we fish in the community we work from. We've been fishing a long time. Our motto is trust but verify. Well, we verified, and although nothing is perfect, what we found is a community rebuilt on the opportunity wind power provided. An expanded fishing port, a revitalized downtown that used to be about half empty, and people thriving instead of just surviving. Nothing is perfect, but we are ready to find a way that will help the fishing community and provide opportunity to New London. This isn't a quick fix for political gain. It's an opportunity that this should be viewed as a springboard. We have all worked hard. We have all worked hard to meet the challenges to make this work for everyone. Our first was getting through broad strokes from promoters and getting real information from people we know, or who have the answers to these questions. Meetings like this are invaluable. If you have questions, please ask. Ask us, ask Matthew, ask people who live on wind power and have done this on a large scale. In our travels this summer, my wife and I visited Block Island a couple of times. I took the opportunity to speak to some Block Island locals about their experience with wind power so far. They were all very positive comments about the cost being lower than their previous rates with no interruption of services. These comments were from year-round residents. I was very encouraged by this feedback. While we continue to gather information, we want to be part of the solution. We understand one challenge is finding a new home for the fishermen at the State Pier. In order to meet that challenge, we believe New London Seafood can make room at our piers and invite all the parties involved to reach out to discuss the possibility of them docking with us at Fort Trumbull. It will require some improvements and teamwork, but we are happy to do our part to give New London the opportunity it deserves. New London needs a real opportunity, and if we all work together, Orsted can be just that. I'd like to thank everyone that's here tonight for the opportunity to speak. I would give kudos to Matthew Morrissey for being accessible and willing to work through any and all our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start reading two names so that whoever's in queue kind of knows to get ready. So next up is James McKinsey, and after him is going to be Frida Berrigan, perhaps?
Thank you very much. As you said, my name is James McKenzie. I'm with Quinn Herring Marketing. I'm not providing comment on Quinn Herring Marketing. I'm actually here on behalf of a client, the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. Sorry. So yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. So, thank you for the opportunity to testify on the redevelopment of State Pier in advance of the procurement of new offshore wind facilities in accordance with Section 1 of Public Act 19-71. And that concerning the procurement of energy derived from offshore wind. We at the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters are excited to see our state looking to take bold action to invest in clean energy, to combat climate change, to create green-collar jobs, and to meet our carbon emission reduction targets. Recent reports from the United Nations leave no room for doubt or inaction when it comes to our climate crisis. We must cut greenhouse gas emissions and transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. Governor Lamont's recent commitment to a zero-carbon electric grid by 2040 is a step in the right direction. But we need significant investment in renewable energy in order to achieve those goals and make a difference in the fight against climate change. At the same time, Connecticut must adapt to a changing economy and the departure of several major employers in our state. We have a strong, educated workforce, and our clean energy job sector is roughly 30,000 strong. According to the National Nonpartisan Business Group, Environmental Entrepreneurs, the clean energy sector grew 3.6% nationwide in 2018. It's projected to grow by an additional 6% this year. Thanks to our investment in offshore wind, Connecticut can join this growing field and emerge as a national leader. CTLCB has been closely monitoring our state's procurement of new offshore wind energy. We spoke with lawmakers and stakeholders throughout the legislative session about the significance offshore wind could have for both our economy and for our environment. We have also urged the Commission on Environmental Standards to prioritize environmental protection and consider existing and new data to determine the impacts that these offshore wind facilities will have on our wildlife and develop concrete mitigation plans. Clean energy is clearly the future for our economy and for our planet. We have a responsibility to lay a strong groundwork for successful, responsible projects to come. Thank you for considering these comments and for keeping the environment at the top of your mind as you evaluate proposals. Sincerely, Amanda Shane, Deputy Director, CTLCB. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Frida Bergen, and just queuing up Luis Fabriciewicz.
All right, good evening. My name is Chris Strait. I am actually the campaign manager for Frida Bergen, so I'm speaking on her behalf. I'm reading her words. Good evening. My name is Frida Bergen. I am a member of the Green Party and a candidate for mayor of New London. We've heard about construction and hardware and site specifications tonight, but I'm interested in people and money. I recently read that Orsted offered a town in the Hamptons, one of the richest enclaves in the country, and $8 million for a community center. As I talk to my neighbors about their concerns, I hear again and again that New London needs a community center, a place for young people, a place to meet, a place to connect. We are a city without a center. New London is not the Hamptons. Many of us, nearly a third, live below the poverty line. We need good union jobs. We need pathways to those jobs for local residents, and we need good housing. We need a community center. The amounts of money being offered New London are fractions of what your companies are offering richer communities. We are paying attention. We do not want to be undervalued. We do not want to be taken advantage of. We have had enough of that. So what are you bringing to the table? What do you offer New London? Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. And then next up in the queue is going to be Victor Mendoza.
Oh, well. Folks, when I signed in, I didn't realize I was signing in to make a comment. Past time conjuring up something. I'm an environmentalist. I'm a member of the Sierra Club. Here's clean air, clean water, and it's coming. Clean energy. Yay!
Victor, and after Victor in the queue is Nancy Kauser.
Victor Mendoza from Rockland, Connecticut. I've been a longshoreman for over 10 years. And new company, I hear it's good, but right now, we're not getting to work. You know what I mean? So that's my concern. Where are we going to be when all this happens? Right now, there's no ships coming in. So that's my concern. We had 43 ships in 2018. Since the new company came in, 4. And a few of them in like 7 hours. So that's my concern. You know, is it going to be work now, or is this what we should expect? Okay? That's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Kauser, and up in queue is John Humphreys.
It's one of the few times in my life I have to raise a microphone.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Kauser. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Connecticut Enterprise Region sector, which is the region's economic development organization. We are very supportive of the New London port becoming a major component of the offshore wind industry emerging along the eastern seaboard. It's not just about New London, it's not just about Connecticut. This is the eastern seaboard. Offshore wind fits well within our growing maritime industry cluster, which includes electric boat, the supply chain, the Navy, the Coast Guard, everything that's emerging among our commercial ventures as well. It's also very compatible with the workforce development efforts that are underway in this region. We have cutting-edge, nationally recognized pipeline initiatives to help grow great jobs in the trades, and this absolutely fits in with that initiative. Our region's comprehensive economic development strategy, which sector stewards, calls for strengthening and diversifying our regional economy, primarily through collaboration, coordination, reduction of barriers, and cross-sector interactions. This is what we're talking about here. We're therefore eager to be part of this process that balances the needs of Ørsted and Eversource with the needs of New London, with the needs of its residents, and with the needs of the existing businesses that rely on the port. I thank you for having this meeting. This was a courageous undertaking. We're very, very looking forward to being part of the solution. I think these disagreements, these discussions are very healthy, and I think they're going to lead to a better agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. John Humphreys, I think I might have seen John walk out. Next up is Marty Olsen. And following Marty, so you can get ready, is CC Van Zandt.
Good evening, and thank you, everybody. It's been a very informative presentation this evening. I'm a New London City Councilor. I'm also a candidate for mayor of the City of New London. And tonight's session, I think, has raised as many questions as it's answered. And I strongly feel that before moving post-haste, that it's critical that many of the questions that have been posed need to be addressed. One of the key issues has been transparency. I'm delighted that we're finally getting a chance to get a public airing of this project. I think it's unfortunate that our primary source of information is Mr. Collins from the day. Good reading, but I think we should be getting it from you guys, quite frankly. I have serious questions regarding the monopoly aspect of things. It's kind of un-American monopolies. I think we ought to look at that very carefully. As far as the jobs go, the gentlemen who are just up here, what's going to happen to the longshoremen? I worry about that. We've got folks that are working here now. What happens to their jobs, not only in the future, but right now? Where's the salt? Anybody know? We're not building yet. Where's the salt? The credibility of the Connecticut Port Authority is not exactly at an apex. I think we ought to clean up our act there before we go again moving pell-mell on this project. What is the rush? Cool, calm, and collect works for me, and I hope that it would for you. Is this a done deal? Many comments would lead you to believe that it may be. I'm worried about that. As a city councilor, absolutely nothing about this project has come across our desks. I think that's wrong. Nothing has come across our desk regarding the demolition of the Winthrop high-rises, which apparently is going to be a component of this. We had a verbal report from the mayor at our meeting last night. That's it. I think we deserve more and we deserve better as elected officials and as a community. I think it's important that we get many of these issues addressed before we all jump up and down, run down the street, dropping confetti. This is big, big, big business here. It's going to impact our community and our region for decades. We can't afford to make a mistake. A seat was promised to New London on the Connecticut Port Authority. To the best of my knowledge, that has not been forthcoming. Why not? Thank you.
Thank you. Kiki Van Zandt is next, and to queue up following her will be Kate Goulart.
My name is Claiborne Van Zandt. I live at 3 Front Street in Groton. My wife and I spent about 14 years on a boat living off the grid. We certainly liked alternative energy then, and we still do. And we're great supporters of it. We think we, as a country, as a world, have to go to alternative energies and as quickly as possible. I am concerned with anybody who's interested in filling up part of our waterway. I just don't think that that should be part of the solution. And I hope that that issue will be addressed before you finalize plans. Thank you.
Thank you. Kat Goulart, and then Barry Neistat is in the queue after Kat.
Good evening, Kat Goulart. I am a New London resident, and I heard a couple people up here earlier speak and say that they weren't on an economic development something or other. I am on our city's Economic Development Commission. We are appointed by the City Council. This issue has not come before us. We don't have a terrible amount to do with, unfortunately, with economic development in the city. I think that's part of the frustration with, or frustration of, a lot of the people in the room. There are a lot of things that happen in this city, and groups and people, particularly taxpayers, who should know, don't. So if you're sensing frustration, all of you here need to know that, we're talking about lack of transparency, but we're kind of putting that, we're being polite about it. We hear many different stories about the same thing, and quite honestly, if it weren't for Kevin Blacker's persistency and Dave Collins' articles, we may not all be here in this room today. And I think that, we really truly appreciate you being here. That said, I'd like to have an open Q&A, and I know that many of us here would like the open Q&A. Rather than breaking off and having people ask their questions privately, many of us all have a lot of the same questions. It would be nice to have the questions answered in an open forum so that there's more accountability, so that we can move forward in a more open and honest way. I was in Sweetwater, Texas recently. I see by your face, you must be familiar with it, hundreds and hundreds of miles of wind farm. It has been a boon for that area. It quite frankly supports the town of Sweetwater. People there really love it. They do it a little bit differently. It's private land there for those who aren't familiar with it. The developers, and I'm not quite sure how it works or who it is, but they go in and they put it up and they pay, to the landowners. It has been really, really good. I don't want to see us sleep on this opportunity, but I don't want to see it done poorly. I would like to see us move forward and have everything be open and honest and transparent. That said, my biggest issue is, well, there's two. One is the Crystal Avenue property that already came up earlier. We need to make sure that there is some sort of revenue coming into the city for that. We don't have a lot of land left in New London. That is one of the only open spaces. Second is the use of the port. When we're talking about pilot versus paying actual tax money. I know that the state owns the port, but the use of the port is going to be for a for-profit company. It's no different than if a church buys the old Domino's. It used to be a Domino's, it was a for-profit, but now a church is a not-for-profit. So now the use of the property is not for-profit, they don't pay taxes. I would like to see a for-profit company using land to pay taxes in the manner that all other for-profit companies pay. So I really, in the spirit of the prior speaker who mentioned that we're getting shortchanged, seems an awful lot like New London's getting shortchanged. We need this opportunity. It is a win-win for all parties involved. We need more money on the table before we move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry Neistat's up next, and in queue is Dave Preka.
My name is Barry Neistat. I'm going to give you a brief history of my time in New London, and I'm going to give you then a little talk about my relationship with Orsted. I'll be quick. My wife Susan and I, we own 42 Bank Street. It's a Muddy Waters Cafe. We've had that for 16 years. The building is ours. We own that also. We've owned that. It's been in our family since 1940. 80 years, going on 80 years now. It started out as a hardware store, restaurant supply, antique store. Then it was another coffee shop. Then it was Muddy Waters. So what I'm trying to say is we're very invested into New London. We love New London. Our biggest disappointment over the years is New London's become the capital of the missed potential, the missed potential all the time. We've seen countless opportunities go by us, and that's what they do, they go by us. This Orsted, Eversource is for real. I just want to tell you about my little relationship with them. It's kind of a personal story. They're now sharing our building at 42 Bank Street. We're downstairs, they have the top 2 floors. They're under renovation now. I've come to know and respect them. We signed the lease in January, and they have communicated with us every step of the way. And then during the winter, something happened upstairs. They discovered the 2nd floor of our building would need significant structural work to make it viable office space, which would mean other people might just run away from that, might have scared off other tenants. When faced with the setback, Orsted Eversource did not back out. Instead, they chose to step up and say they will not abandon such a loved downtown New London building. This choice made it clear that they were not only working to make the space usable, but to join our community as full partners. We have nothing to say but good about them. Matt Morrissey's been wonderful to us. The building is going to look beautiful. There's still going to be the coffee shop downstairs. It'll be one of the nicest looking buildings on Bank Street when this is all over, and we're thrilled to have them as our partners. For over a year and a half, Orsted Eversource has held countless meetings at Muddy Waters, and I've had the pleasure of getting to know all of them. As a member of this business community, I recognize New London's need for strong community members. Orsted Eversource have made us feel like part of the team, and with this office, that team feels local. This is an opportunity to continue growing in New London and to welcome new, strong, and committed community members. We just don't want to see this pass by. I know there's issues with any major construction. There's issues, but really, please don't let this pass by. We've been down there 44 years. We've seen so much stuff pass by. We're the town of opportunity. We're the town of missed potential over and over again. So figure it out. They're wonderful people to work with. They've been with me for like a year and a half now. Never have trouble reaching them. Just give it a thought. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Dave Preka's next, and in the queue is Tony Appleton.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Preka, and I'm President and CEO of Advanced Group, a contracting firm recently completed a renovation of Hot Rod, which we all miss happy hour, and the Robert Building and Bank Street. My company is currently contracted to carry out the demolition, structural, and renovation work at Muddy Waters at 42 Bank Street for Orsted and Eversource office. No pressure here. I'm speaking today to share a personal experience today with Orsted and Eversource joint venture. I am express my support for the proposed improvements to the state pier. I'm proud that my business is one of the first benefit from the growth of offshore wind. I believe that Advanced Group is a prime example of the types of investment and opportunity as a joint venture and the offshore industry will bring to our region. I want to be known that one of the first business to work with Orsted and Eversource in New London was not a shipper, was not a shipbuilder, but a contractor. The introduction of the industry will have opportunities that stretch far beyond our waters, and it will be foolish to pass on this chance for new business. As a contractor, I understand what a great undertaking renovation of a building can be, especially one in a historic district such as downtown New London. When beginning the project at Muddy Waters, Orsted and Eversource were responsive and engaged with every step, every decision, and overcoming every challenge. To date, we have progressed rapidly on the renovation of their new office, and we look forward to showcasing that will be another successful project in a couple of months. Trust and long-term relationship are critical in my business, and I pride my company in the quality of our work and portfolio and returning clients. We operate based off referrals and have built a successful business relationship with those in your London community. If Advanced Group work with Orsted, Eversource, joint venture is an indication of how they plan to engage with our business community. I believe we should be encouraging this investment in New London and forming a long-term relationship with its partners. So far, that's two non-water dependent local business, Advanced Group and Muddy Waters, which are benefiting from offshore wind. This is before the work has even begun at the state pier. I can only imagine the other opportunities will arise when construction begins. At Advanced Group, we support the joint venture and the immense opportunity that Port Authority Gateway, the joint venture, and the state will bring to our region. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tony Appleton, and in the queue is Steve Cohen.
Hi, good evening, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Appleton, and I'm Director Offshore for a company called Burns McDonnell here in the USA. As you can tell, I'm not local. I'm probably the only non-local here, so I'll apologize for anything I say that upsets anybody in advance now. But I am delighted to be part of the newest and most exciting development in the modern era, and that's offshore wind. I've been asked to say a few words about how the sector has developed in the UK, and I think it's important that the US learns those lessons, that doesn't make the same mistakes that the UK has learned over the last sort of 10, 15 years. I have spent 15 years in the sector, and to date I've built over 20 offshore wind farms, both in the UK and in European waters, with a whole range of developers, including Orsted. I've helped the sector grow in two primary regions in the UK, one being the Humber region, which is on the eastern seaboard. I've done that as part of the Team Humber Marine Alliance group, and Team Humber is also now supporting offshore wind in the US. And I've also helped develop the sector in the northeast of England. And I'm now pleased to be able to support you guys in the US. And just so we're clear, I still live in Newcastle in the northeast of England. I'm proud to be from there, and I think it's very important that I put something back into the community, both in the UK and here in the US. Both the two regions I've mentioned have, over the last 30 to 40 years, suffered from higher than average UK unemployment. And that's as a result of demise of traditional industries in those areas, primarily heavy engineering in the northeast and close to hearts in the US, fishing in the Humber region. However, thanks to the investment, both in terms of time, money, and effort by local government and by the major players in the sector, such as companies like Ørsted and Eversource over here, during those early stages of development in the regions, we have developed a huge supply chain. We've created many jobs, and in both of those regions, the sector is now sustainable for the next 30 to 60 years. Humberside in particular has benefited by money invested by by Ørsted, and is now viewed as a world leader in the sector thanks to that initial investment. And we are the centre of excellence in the UK for operation and maintenance of offshore wind farms in the North Sea. And it should be noted at the minute, the UK has got 45% of the global deployment in offshore wind. So that means we are the best in the biggest sector. So there's a message there for you guys over here. Just a couple of last things, because I'm getting bombed here. The offshore sector in the USA can be the biggest and the best in the world, but you have to grab it with both hands, and you have to grab it now. And by grabbing it with both hands, you'll develop a supply chain. You will get inward investment, both nationally and from international companies. You will have skills development. You will get job creation, and there is a boatload of other benefits that you will get, and that's the opportunities that Humberside is getting at the minute. You've got to remember, this is not a 5, 10, 20, 30-year project. This is a 50 to 60 to 70-year project. That's what we're talking about here. It's not over the next few years. It's 10 years of construction and then 40 to 50 years of operation and maintenance. That's what you've got to remember. This is not a short-term opportunity you guys have got. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Cohen, and in the queue, I believe Chris Vachon has arrived.
Thank you. Steve Cohen, president of Mystic Aquarium. Much of the discussion tonight has focused on the economic impact of this project, which is extremely positive for the community, for the region, and for the state. The environmental impact and environmental benefits are also substantial, and many people have touched on that. We support the project for both reasons, but we also support the project because this originated as a New England project under the brand Deepwater Wind. It originated by New England people who wanted to harness the ocean in a positive way and to bring wind energy, ocean wind energy, to New England and to this region in particular. They're local people, even though the company Deepwater Wind was acquired by Ørsted and Eversource. When Deepwater Wind made commitments to this community, and they've made substantial commitments and they've done substantial things already, those commitments have been honored by Ørsted, by Eversource. This company has done more for this region than many companies that have been here for generations and that have a much larger impact and a much larger footprint than what is proposed, much larger impact in terms of the potential negative environmental stuff. So these are folks who definitely can be trusted. They're people who listen to the community. That's been our experience, and this is a great project. One final thought. We do have to be committed to this city, to New London. Ørsted is committed to New London. But all of us have to keep that in mind. A healthy port is good, but a healthy city that hosts that port is better. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Vachon? And in the queue, Senator Heather Summers.
Sorry, I was supposed to be here earlier. I just want to talk real quick. I know you guys have been here all night long. I represent the Carpenters Union, and I just want everybody to know we are in full support of this. Ørsted is a tremendous company. The opportunity economically that this is going to bring to this region, we all know we've been in tough shape for a long time. And this is an absolute fantastic opportunity for many, many people, both union, non-union, for years and years to come. We have a chance for young people to have jobs that they would never otherwise have an opportunity for. I know that we had worked with New London, the building trades, all of us, in an issue with some of the young kids to get them into organized labor, training, apprenticeship programs. They have no transportation. They have no driver's licenses. This project is going to be right in their backyard. Think of the opportunity that that's going to give them, the future that that's going to give them, that they otherwise would never have that chance. And these folks are bringing that to them. Let's not mess this up. This is our chance to do the right thing. I sure as hell think that at this time and place, New London and Eastern Connecticut should be number one, not second. So let's be leaders instead of followers for once. And we support it 100%.
Thank you. Senator Summers.
Good evening, everyone. I have the privilege of being the state senator from the 18th district, and I have been following and studying offshore wind ever since the industry was first being considered as a partner in our region. Offshore wind to me sounded like a unique opportunity, but I was not interested in getting wrapped up in all the hype because I wasn't sure about offshore wind. I wanted to know, how is this industry going to benefit our region? How is it going to benefit our economy? What were the risks involved to our environment, particularly for me, and for our economy? And how would this renewable energy source affect my beloved commercial fishermen, our fabricators, and importantly, the ratepayers of Connecticut? So I wanted to know all the positives, all the challenges, all the negatives, and all the possible scenarios on how this was going to work. So 2 years ago, I can tell you, I was solidly against offshore wind. It seemed like an expensive industry that had only been put to practice as sort of a pilot experiment off of Block Island. And in that time, I've made it my job and my mission really to learn as much as I possibly can about offshore wind. I have had countless questions. I'm sure at times, testing the patience of some of the folks from Ørsted. But I have to tell you that each time these joint venture with Ørsted and now with Eversource has answered my concerns in detail. They've been accessible. They have been committed to answering my questions. And when I say countless, I mean countless. My biggest concern at the time was the impact that offshore wind would have on our remaining fishing fleets in New London and Stonington, Connecticut. And I believed that we needed to continue and increase the engagement with our fishing industry, and it was paramount, and that was my focus. I will say that I believe that the unfortunate events at the Port Authority over the past month have caused us all to pause, and I still believe that we need to have certain questions answered. And I was happy to see that some of my fellow senators and representatives have joined myself and Representative Carney when we asked to have a full public hearing back in July so that we can have these questions answered and put that to bed. That, what has happened, has sort of clouded the relationship between Ørsted and a potential agreement. And we need to have the people that were in charge at that time come and answer so we can leave that chapter behind us. For tonight, I would like to be clear that I support the introduction of offshore wind here in Eastern Connecticut. But as I have stated before in my op-ed, I do believe that allowing just one company to occupy a harbor requires more diligence, more input, and certainly more confidence in the Port Authority who is crafting the legislation to enter into the contract. There is an awful lot of investment money going into this underutilized facility through a public-private partnership, and it's not something that can be easily ignored. On top of this investment, this industry has already pledged hundreds of job opportunities and other opportunities to our maritime businesses, our regional sciences, our educational institutions. This is a work in process. This is something That's new territory. The size of this wind farm has not been done before. So we are all on new ground. But it also, with new ground comes great opportunity. I would believe that from the people that I have spoken to and the diligence that I have spent the time doing, Orsted has made good on its commitments to other host communities. So that is a really good thing to have in your bag, across the globe actually. So the Orsted Eversource joint venture has already secured contracts for offshore wind in the northeastern United States. That's secured business, those contracts are signed. They're going to stage these products somewhere. I want it to be here under the right conditions. This is not potential, this is not theory, these are real signed contracts. And they're going to move forward with or without us here in Eastern Connecticut. I believe that we should not enter into this blindly, that we should keep the communication process open, transparency open, and that all parties involved need to have a seat at the table to ensure that this deal benefits our tradesmen, our municipalities, our local businesses, ratepayers, and is environmentally sound. So even as I talk to Offshore Wind daily about my issues with the fishermen, I still am supportive of entering this agreement for offshore wind here in Eastern Connecticut. I would like to say that this is an incredible opportunity, literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we have here in Connecticut. It's on the doorstep of New London. It's on the doorstep of the state of Connecticut. It will transform a city that needs transformation desperately. It will transform a city and provide jobs for years to come for future generations. I believe that we can do it. We can do it soundly with everyone having input. And I believe that we need a process that will continue with diligence, input, transparency, with all the citizens in this room and throughout Southeastern Connecticut's best interest at heart. And of course, the ratepayers. So thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for Orsted and Eversource for holding this.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you to everyone who shared your comment with us tonight. I also just want to recognize two folks that we haven't recognized yet this evening. Ayanti Grant is here from Congressman Courtney's office, and Congressman has certainly been a leader in this corridor. And Emily Smith, I'm not sure if Emily's still here, from Senator Murphy's office as well. Delegation is obviously a crucial partner in this initiative, and both Congressman Courtney and Senator Murphy and the rest of the delegation have been here right alongside us. Now, we're going to be available for further questions and comment and discussion, and we're going to sort of break up into three topical areas. In this corner here, we're going to have a table set up that is going to really be about the project, and it's going to have representatives from the Port Authority, Eversource, and Orsted talking about the physical interventions proposed for the pier. The back corner, sort of your back right, will be around operations, and it'll have representatives from both the Port Authority and from Gateway Terminals talking about sort of how the port does and will function. And then finally, in your back left, behind you left, will be representatives from Orsted and Eversource to talk more broadly about wind industry and the turbines and the installation process. With that, again, just want to thank you all for the comments you provided. Thank you all for coming. The turnout was phenomenal, and we look forward to further conversations.